Hey guys, it's Jim here. I have had the Harley Benton HB35 Plus for about 2 weeks now, and I've done some modifications to it. And today I just kind of want to talk about whether it's really worth it to modify these things. So if you haven't seen any of the other videos featuring this guitar before, I'm going to briefly run over what I have modified on it. I replaced the tuners with these Grover Mini Rotomatics that are locking, and the only reason I did that was because I've had them lying around for ages and I intended to do them onto another guitar. I since sold the guitar, and when I was doing some cleanup work I found these and I thought might as well. The only other modifications are all of the screws minus the ones holding in the pickups themselves have been changed to nickel. Same for that plate. The bridge and the tailpiece also have been replaced with Tone Pro's locking pieces. Now, the reasons I did this, like I said, the tuners was an easy call because I knew they would fit the guitar perfectly and I already had them. And the reason I replaced the bridge was because I didn't want gold to mix with nickel. I think it's pretty hideous. And some people think that I was done with the guitar in the previous kind of installation video, that I was just going to leave it mismatched. No. And I realize now it still does have the gold plated on the pickups themselves and the screws holding them into the actual mounts. However, on the next string change, I'm going to remove that gold. I have a good compound that will do that, and I already have, silver screws to put those in, and the guitar will be all set. Would I say that these upgrades are worth it over how it was stock? The guitar was pretty decent stock. I'm going to start here. The guitar held tune fairly well. The nut, although, is not really a bone nut, and that is another thing that's going to be replaced because it was a $5 part, and I have files for myself. I'm going to file that down on the next string change. But the nut was pretty good. The tuners were decent. They were loose, though. They weren't the best ratios as far as when you're actually using them, but they function just fine. Same thing with the bridge. Outside of the sharp edges on the actual saddles themselves, specifically on the E string, there was no real issues with this guitar. I will say, after doing the full install of the tuners and the bridge, it feels tighter. Now, when I say tighter, I mean it just feels more sturdy. It doesn't feel as loose as when I initially got the guitar, and that's kind of a preference thing because in reality, the guitar still held tune just fine. It did a pretty decent job out of the box. So would I say these are must-do upgrades? No. And would I say that even a bone nut is a must-do upgrade? I don't think so either. So then it begs the question, what about this guitar would be worth modifying that you would see a big difference? And that's going to be the electronics. And therein lies the big problem. If you've never worked on a semi-hollow body guitar before, replacing the electronics on these, oh, it's a nightmare. What you have to do is, you have to feed everything through these F-holes and kind of have it pre-wired and use tubing or some sort of mechanism like a rope to make sure everything kind of stays in place, and then pull it out. And the soldering it's a lot more complicated than normal. And if you're not familiar with any of this stuff, where I'm not even going to do it myself, but it can be a little bit of a pain in the butt, or you're definitely going to have to spend, money for a tech to do it, and that's just more money on top. So if you were to replace all that stuff that I had already mentioned, call it $450 at the start, you buy a decent set of humbucker pickups with all new electrical components, because to me, if you have a guitar in this kind of price range and you're going to switch out the pickups, you might as well put in some USA CTS pots and a nice jack to match it as well. So then, even with labor not included, probably looking at almost $600. And what can you get for $600? No. You can get one of those Epiphones, the new series of the 335s, and would that be as good? I mean, those come pretty specced out. They're not really my thing, but that's a thing to think about. The Ibanez, the highest model, the AS93, comes again with a lot better appointment stock as far as the components of the hardware itself, and even the electronics, they're a bit better too. That's going to be well under the budget too. So what is the point of replacing everything, and why do we as guitar players continue to do so? I think part of the answer to this is we like to tinker. And I think if you can go into this process, if you are going to tinker, and just be very understanding of a few things prior to doing it, you will come out okay. And I don't mean come out okay as far as if you resell the guitar, because first of all, you should never buy one of these and modify it new and expect it to hold a value, you're going to lose even more money, because that's just not how the used market works. These guitars, when you add in higher quality parts, it may, really depending on the person that you're going to be trying to sell it to specifically, inherently raise the value. But to the average person that's scoping around Reverb or wherever you're selling your stuff, they don't care about that, and it's not going to be something that you're going to get your money back from. So if you're going to be modifying guitars in any capacity, I would recommend, first of all, playing the guitar. Don't buy like a Harley Benton guitar and buy the parts immediately with it. I wouldn't do that. I would see what the guitar, if it didn't have any glaring weaknesses, you address them there. But I don't feel like it's the best kind of policy to buy a guitar and buy all the parts immediately with it in this kind of price range, and kind of think that you're going to be getting ahead here, because honestly, you're really not. You're only going to be fooling yourself. The other thing to keep in mind, referencing other guitars, you can get a lot of these other higher end semi-acoustic guitars used for the same price that you're going to dump into, with all the labor and all the parts, into a Harley Benton or a similar, like a Firefly, cheaper semi-hollow body guitar. So, I mean, if you really like playing around with stuff, I love playing around with stuff, guys. I totally get that part of it. It's just, it might not be the most fiscally responsible thing that you can do. Now, if you already have one of these guitars, or you have a cheaper guitar and you love it and you never see yourself selling it, and you go into the whole process knowing that you're going to lose money should you change your mind, I mean, knock yourself out and have fun. I mean, part of the fun of this stuff is making your own sound and customizing your own guitar. It's cool. But too many times I see people list up things for prices they're just never going to sell at, because they put money into it, and that's just not how this market works, unfortunately for them. So my bottom line with this guitar, if you are to buy a Harley Benton HB35 Plus and it has no glaring issues from the factory, just leave it alone. It's a perfectly decent guitar. Have it set up, or set it up yourself, preferably. Save yourself money. I preach this on everything. Save as much money as you can on these things. Don't pay other people. Take the time, invest your time to learn these skills, to save yourself money. Set it up and just have fun with it. Enjoy it. These aren't meant to compete with high-end guitars like the Gibson 339 or 335. They're just simply not. And once you start playing the numbers game, like I said, there's going to be other guitars. Well, I'll just spend a little more and I can get a used D'Angelico, or a little more and maybe I can get lucky and find a used Eastman semi-hollow, and the list goes on and on and on. It's a never-ending cycle, you guys. I cannot stress this enough. So just be happy with it. These guitars are good enough stock to use. They're good enough to have fun with. They're good enough to sit and learn on, certainly. And they're good enough, to do some tracking and just go out and play live with. I actually cannot say enough, the more I've had this guitar, I like the Roswell pickups. I don't love the pots in these. The switch is decent, but I mean, is it bad enough where I say I have to replace this stuff? No, not to me. And I think as guitar players, we need to do a better job of being able to distinguish need versus want. But those are my thoughts on whether or not you should modify your own Harley Benton. Remember, at the end of the day, don't listen to me. Don't listen to any YouTuber. If you want to do something, just do what makes you happy. As long as you know as much information as you can going in, you'll be just fine. If you like what I'm doing, leave me a like, you guys. Really do appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you would do in the situation. What would you change? What would you have done differently that I have done on this guitar? Very interested to hear your guys' comments and directions going forward. Until tomorrow, you guys, I will see you then. Take care.